Okay, now we're going to discuss I'm going to show how to use the HighMaterials plugin. The HighMaterials plugin is an Unreal Engine plugin that will automatically assign and create materials for LOD0 and LOD1 after you've imported your static mesh onto Unreal Engine. Enable the plugin, select the static mesh or skill level mesh, and just click the button and it will go and do it. It will go and see which textures or materials have not been created, and it will go and create those materials. Benefit of using this plugin is time. When you create these static meshes and character meshes, a lot of them have a lot of materials. I'm going to start with a static mesh. Need to try and remember which one was it. Oh, okay, not sure what happened there. So a static mesh has a few materials. I didn't want the window that big. Thank you, Maya. Has a few materials assigned. I think it has 6. Oh, right. I need to remember to save. So it has 6 materials. And these have been created using Substance Designer. There are a few things here I just quickly want to clean up that I don't want. I should have done this before. I don't want ambient occlusion, and I don't want height. I just want base color, metallic, normal, and roughness. This is a very low poly mesh, 614 faces. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm still going to create LOD for it. I'm only going to be creating 3. Let's see. So LOD1 has 1000. I was looking at faces. 600 faces. 2 has 500. 3 has 300. And 4 has 100. So I'm going to be selecting this, and I'm just going to give it a new save here, because sometimes this breaks. You would always also make sure you run a cleanup on here and just make sure your mesh is clean before you run this. I'm going to enable triangulation and see if it works. Sometimes it crashes. I'm going to export this to test low FBX. Yeah, it does not like that. Not sure what they've done in this version of Maya, but triangulation on export can go either way these days. But there's a quick and easy way to fix it. All right, are we back? It takes forever to load. Okay, let's try this again. I could triangulate them here. Or, and this is what I would prefer doing, is I could triangulate it before I create the meshes, the level of detail meshes. And let's export this. Just overriding that save. This time untick triangulation. I'm going to go for test low. There'll be a broken file lying in that folder. There it is. So you would copy this plugin here and extract it to your Unreal Engine project folder. But before that, let's create an Unreal Engine project. Keep in mind it has to be C++. Just going to create a new third person, doesn't matter. I'm just going to call the project test. I'm going to include starter content. You always want to include starter content because this plugin actually uses starter content, references starter content. So this plugin is only going to be compatible with Unreal Engine 420. So we have our little dude here. If the plugin is enabled, if I just go to my plugins here, I don't see the plugin here. It would be categorized under other because I didn't give it a category. So let's go ahead and close this. Just go to the folder I just created quickly. There is a Visual Studio project here. You don't need to modify any of the C++ code to get the plugin working. But I'm just going to give it a build. Okay, and that worked. And I'm going to close it because I don't need it open. So you would download this to your hard drive somewhere. I've got it over here, so I'm just going to copy it to this tester. That's not even the project I created. So I created the wrong project, I think. So let's do it again. I wanted to say that's weird. Normally it opens up Visual Studio when you're creating a C++ project. So I forgot to tick C++. Right, let's do it again. I'm just going to call it test. With starter content, create the project. Let's go. So it should open up Visual Studio and then it's going to open up the project. You could do it with just the blueprint project, but I haven't. And all of our projects will always be C++, so there's no need for me to even test that. I should still have that reference to that file on my clipboard if it hasn't been removed. Okay, so Visual Studio opened up and the project's open. Let's give this a chance to get its bearings. Thank you, go away. not going to build it now. So I'm going to go to my plugins folder here, right? There's nothing here under other. Test it again. Make sure it's working. So it's here. It's working. Got a decent frame rate. Okay, I'm going to close this down. Just wait a few seconds for the executable to die off. I'm going to hit a build. Right, it's done. I'm going to close this because I don't need it. Now let's try it again. So it's this guy here, test. It's the one I created right now. So I'm going to just come in here, create a new folder called plugins. I'm going to paste that file there and just extract it. That's all you need to do. Then I'm just going to run the project again. Keep in mind, once again, this only works with 420. Immediately you can see a button there called HighMaterialsPlugin, and if you go to your plugins folder, you'll see it's here categorized under other. The first thing you need to do is go to your view options, enable show plugin content. It's going to have a folder here called materials. You need to copy that into your content. Make sure that it's in the root folder of your content, and then you can untick that show plugin content. You don't need to show it the whole time. Right, the next thing I'm going to do, make sure it's saved. All this is just a little, it's just a material that has exposes some parameters, and that references starter content. The plugin could have created this automatically in C++, but I was too lazy. So I'm going to create a folder here under geometry, under meshes. I'm going to create a new folder here and call it test. And I'm going to bring in the asset that we just exported. It was test low and test high, right? I don't need test high. So I'm just going to import test low. Important things are I want to import materials and textures. I want to make sure that I get combined meshes on, and I import the mesh LODs, very important. And then I want to assign this to let's assign this to small prop. So it sets the LOD biases up correctly for what I want. If this was a large prop, I'd make it large prop, and if it's something that contains a lot of detail, I'd go for high detail. So that will keep your LOD 0 and 1 visible for longer. I think small prop should be fine. Let's import it. Give the shaders a second to compile. Save. Now it imported all of these, created all of these materials here with the correct naming convention, test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 _ mat, and it included a reference to these textures here. So I'm just going to open up the mesh here and you can see it. This does not have any, these materials here do not have any they do not have any normal maps or anything like that, so that's why the mesh doesn't have any normal maps applied. The LOD should have come in. There's my lowest LOD, and if we start moving back a little bit, you can see it there. It's swapped to LOD 1. There's 2. There's 3. I think they fixed the biases up a bit better. Previously for me it was swapping way too quickly. I'm not going to change anything here except for collision. I'm going to use complex as simple and say customized collision because I prefer that. And then I'm just going to drop in a few instances here. Let's put one up here. We're going to do the same now for a skeletal mesh as well, right? So the next step you want to do is you want to bring in all your substance materials, textures. So I'm just going to select them all, make sure you drag and drop them into the same location where the static mesh is. Otherwise, it's not going to work. The naming convention, once again, is extremely important. If you do change, it doesn't have to be underscore mat, but your materials that you export from Substance must match this naming convention that they have here, where it's the material name and then this. So it's the mesh name underscore the material name and then underscore the base color, metallic, normal, roughness. It's very important. Now, normally you would go in here and you would duplicate this material, create another parent material, drag in your base color, normal, roughness, right, and link them to your static mesh here by adding more slots here, and then going into LOD0 and specifying to use the different slot for each one, right? So that's what the plugin will do for you. If all goes well, right? So I'm just going to select the static mesh and click HighMaterialsPlugin, and I can immediately see that it works, and there I saved. And if I take a look, I can see there's a couple of new materials here. Test Mat High, for example. Now this is using that material that we referenced as a parent, base high mat, which includes, you know, you can see here it's using the normal map. So it's got the base color, metallic, normal, and roughness set. It's by default very shiny. That would go into your roughness. You would need to set that in your roughness. I would assume that could be your spec. Anyway, if I open up the mesh, you can see now it looks like almost totally different, because now what's happened, if you look at LOD0, it's linking to the high materials. LOD1 should also have linked to the high materials, but it doesn't always refresh, and it has. And if you go to LOD2, you'll see they're just pointing to the old. So test underscore one mat, they're just pointing to the old default ones. So the lower LODs, you don't want them to have normal maps and things like that. But for the higher ones, you want them to have normal maps. So if you go out here, you see there's still normal maps. They're applied, and they're bam, they fall off. Now, unfortunately, you can't see it because of the biases, but that's what's happening. And if we run this now, let's just do a quick build. So this saved me, and will save you, an incredible amount of time, because normally you're going to have a crap load of materials in here, and doing this manually. Your other option is you could always import the material as an SBSAR. The problem with that is, and because we've enabled collision here, it works. The problem with importing it as an SBSAR file is Substance is the cache is known to crash, and usually it just, you still then have to bring in your SBSARs, open up your mesh, and then add your material slots, and still go in and select all of these little, you know, connect up all of these little guys, put the materials in there. We could write a plugin to do that automatically, but I found the Substance materials as they come in there, I don't know, they're not that useful. This I think is better, and if you have any material functions that you need, like wear and tear and things like that, you can just do it yourself using material functions. So there's some bad geometry there. That looks really bad, because this was quick and dirty. But you can see it's applying the normal maps. Now I'm going to do the same thing for a skeletal mesh, and hopefully it won't crash. Let's go to, let's try this one. I think this one also has animation on it. This animation was imported from Mixamo, whatever. Skinning, you can see, isn't like 100%. Okay, first thing I'm going to do is, where's my skeleton? And let's take a look at these groups. If I want to create LOD groups, I can't have this in a group, so I have to ungroup this. Okay, I'm going to save this as a new version. So I'm just going to, because it might crash. I think that's okay. First things first. First I'm going to try it without triangulating. And then I'll try it with. So you want to select all of your geometry first. Go in here. You can see this is pretty high. 74,000. Let's export this selection. Create LOD meshes. For these ones, I want to go right up to 5 LODs. And let's apply it. And remember to, you have to tick copy skin weights at the top here, so it will bring the skin clusters along and copy their skin weights as well. It does that automatically for you. Previously you had to script all of this up yourself, which I have done in Python. It's not fun. And there it's gone and created my LODs for me. Let's just test in a pose and make sure nothing snaps. If you have broken geometry, non-manifold, any weird geometry, your meshes are going to snap. You'll see them immediately snap in a lower LOD because the reduction algorithms don't work on non-manifold geometry. It's a quick way to see if your stuff works. But this is working. I can see it drop down to all the lower LODs. And she's still maintaining her pose without breaking the. You'll see immediately the close will snap back to the bind pose if there's an issue because the skin cluster wasn't there. So the next thing I want to do is I want to export this. First I'm going to save. I'm just going to go for a new save. So I'm going to select the skeleton and the mesh and just go export selection. This time I'm going to choose triangulate, and I'm also going to exclude animation. I just want the base mesh on its own first. So here I'm going to just choose Mavis low. Click yes. Might crash. Alrighty, that worked. It doesn't always work. Give that another save. The next thing I want to do is just select the skeleton. This time I'm going to be exporting the animation. So select the skeleton, export selection. I would prefer if you just take the mesh along as well. So export selection. This time include animation. And I'm going to go bake it down 0 to 68. I'm going to choose Mavis low and just call this underscore anim and hit it. Let's see. You don't really need to export the mesh along with it, but there were issues if you have morph targets. Anyway, that's not this. This isn't about morph targets. Once that's done, let's give this a save. Let's hop on back over to Unreal Engine. I'm going to create a new folder here. And let's see. These are her substance materials. You can see there's quite a lot. If I were to go in and create materials for all of these, it would take forever. So let's start by bringing in the mesh. So I'm going to start by bringing in Mavis low. I want to bring it in as a skeletal mesh. I do want to import the mesh. I do not have a skeleton. I do want to import mesh LODs. I do want to import morph targets, although I have none. But once you've set that, next time it'll remember. And I do want to import the materials and textures. Let's see if it works. This is not really such a big file. Okay, give it a save, wait for the shaders, come on. Sometimes if you save while it's compiling shaders, it can crash. Right, so here's our mesh. There's a physics asset and there's our skeleton. So if I just open this up, there's no animation here. It is a skeletal mesh. It does have a skeleton. I don't mind if I could see the skeleton. But yeah, I see the skeleton. This skeleton was created using the Mixamo naming convention. The model wasn't actually modeled like this. It was reset to this bind pose. Anyway, that's not what this is about. So here are the textures that it brought in. And my LODs should be here. Yeah, there they are. Let's just quickly fly out here a little bit and see. There's LOD 1, 2, 3, 4, there's 5. So they seem to be working. I can see the pants disappearing there. So there it's getting really, really low, which is good. So from, where are my faces? Triangles, 74,000 to, come on, to 500. It's basically invisible. That's pretty damn good. All right. Let's take a look at one of these materials quickly. I'm just going to open up the shirt. Love how this drops down. And where is it? Here. So this is how it imports it. Just a simple little texture. This is nice for low res. Very, very, very low surface material. Right, nothing special. Now, same step as before. Go to Substance, grab all the materials, the textures that Substance exported. Only base color, metallic, normal, and roughness. I don't need anything else. And just make sure it's the right folder. Yeah, and come on, pop it in there. Done. Give it a save. These textures aren't referenced now by anything, so if you were to package your game, they wouldn't be included. So now you select your skeletal mesh. Once again, just take a look here. It's only got these guys here. I haven't tested with this mesh before, this particular skeletal mesh. Let's just drag an instance in here quickly. Let's put one over there as well. To see what it looks like before we do anything. Oh wow, it's popping. Look at that. That's because of the bind pose. The export that I did included a funky frame. Yeah, typically when you export your that's why she's popping. Typically when you export your mesh, you shouldn't include animation. So what am I talking about? This mesh here has animation on it. So if I select all of these bones and zero out the animation, you should see the same pop. Yeah, you saw that, right? So let's go back to frame 0 here and zero out these. Look at the mesh, see how it pops. So this is how you would want to export it. It must have no animations in the bind pose. So that's going to obviously create problems when we bring in the animation, potentially depending on factors. But obviously you're never going to bring in a skeletal mesh like this and just drop it in. It's going to be assigned to a blueprint of some kind, driven by a character or a pawn of some kind, generally speaking. Right, back to the plugin. So we select our skeletal mesh and we click HighMaterialsPlugin. It's done. Hit Control-Shift-S and it's saved. Let's see what it did. I now have 21 materials from a previous number, and I can already see there's something very shiny going on there, which I'm not crazy about. And it's linked to shirt matte high on LOD 0, LOD 1. It is actually high, it's just not showing it. And LOD 2, that's just a bug in Unreal. It doesn't always refresh. Yeah, and you can see the pop there as well. So there's LOD 1, and now LOD 2. Unfortunately, it's going to be hard to see the pop, but you can see it. You can see it pop from. Oh wow, there's smoothing groups there. I needed to smooth this mesh. Yeah, the smoothing groups are bad. Okay. I could try and fix it. But okay, that's not what this demo was about. So there we go. And it created all of these textures. Now, if you select it again and you run the script again, it's not going to do anything because it's already done all the work. So if you do add a new material and you want to do this again, you have to delete everything and do it again. So if you have any references to your skeletal meshes, you need to temporarily replace them, re-import, and then rerun the plugin. Once it finds one high material on it, it's not going to go through and try and find which ones aren't there. That's just how it was designed. And yeah, to fix this grainy mess here, you just make sure when you, after you've modeled, because you see it's not happening on the other ones, it's just happening on the body. Just make sure you smooth it before you skin it up. So that's my fault. There is a way around it, of course. You could change it to just recalculate the normals on import, and that's also fine. And in fact, I can quickly test that theory just to see. I don't care if it's still referenced in memory. It shouldn't matter. Right. Just going to bring it in again and then we'll do the animation. So maybe it's low. Pop it in. Oh, it's compute normals. There we go. This should have been set to import normals. That's my mistake. Run the import. It's recompiling the shaders. So this workflow is actually pretty fast. While this is happening, you could bring in your textures here. I haven't done that while it's busy recompiling shaders, so who knows, it might crash. And then let's save everything. First, see if this actually did solve the problem. It looks like it did. So you can see again now all the materials are back to the old default one. There's no high materials here. All my LODs are still here in place. So let's run the plugin again, just with it selected there. Right. I'm going to add 3 this time. Let's just go in here and check. Right, and you can see it's applied the high-res materials now, and it's gotten rid of that blocky, faceted look. Compute normals did that, which is weird, really weird. Normally Unreal Engine's compute normals is pretty damn good. And you can see your LOD 0 is on high. LOD 1 is also actually on high. Let's bring in an animation, just for fun. I'm not going to import the mesh. I am going to reuse an existing skeleton. I have my exported time. I don't need to set anything else, I don't think, and just save it once it comes in. I haven't tested this animation before, so it might not work. It's this one here. I'm just going to reference it. We'll just do one. Don't need to do both. And this is what it looks like. What's happening there? Something's breaking right there. Yeah, that's because of, like I said, when you import this, when you export the mesh itself, you mustn't export it with any animation. So we can test that theory too. As you can see, it's breaking. Or if you look in Maya, it's not breaking. So fix is, it's actually quite easy. Let's undo this quickly. The only downside is you need to recreate this completely every time, but that should be fine. You should only be having references to these. You shouldn't be having any weird modifications, and these are going to be fast iterations. So once you find or finalize the mesh, you're not going to be doing this anymore anyway. So you're going to be having things like animation curves and things like that in here, which are going to limit your ability to do this re-import. So you want to try and nail down all these kinds of issues first as quickly as possible. So now I have an LOD group here, so I'm going to go back to a previous save. Let's go to this one here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to break connections here and zero out. I still have root motion on my hips, so break the connections there. Don't want any translation on X. That should be the default. This is the bind pose. Okay, let's save this. I just lost my animation, but that's no problem to get it back. Select these guys. Create LOD meshes quickly. So now the workflow, you can see it's what the iteration would be. Let's say you had a skinning change that you need to make. This is the kind of thing you would need to do. Now typically doing this, every time you re-import the mesh, it's going to break your materials. So you could technically re-import the mesh and just drop and just run the plugin again. It should work. You might have to delete some of the textures, but I mean I haven't done that really. Okay, so let's select this guy export selection. Assets, Mavis low, triangulate, no animation, export selection. Yes. Hopefully it doesn't crash. Right. Let's bring it in again. Shouldn't have to change anything. Import normals is there, mesh, wara, LODs, materials, import. You can hear the CPU working a bit harder now. While the shaders are busy importing, I'm going to drop these guys in here. Shaders are almost done. Shaders are done. Save everything. Let's just drop her in here. Now I'm not going to waste any time here. I'm just going to select her, click the plugin, save. I can already see it's gone high res. Now that pop should be gone. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, that's bad. That's bad. Why is it doing that? Why is it doing that? I think it has something to do with the bind pose. You can see it's doing popping there. It shouldn't have. So this is actually a little bit off topic now. Okay, let's just try it one more time. Let's update the reference pose and just see if that makes a difference. I don't know if it is. I'm not 100% sure what's causing this. Yeah, it's definitely, it's popping. I can see it there popping. Interesting. Okay. I'm gonna waste time with this. Let's try something else. I haven't saved this. But I think I know what's happening. It's got to do with the bind pose. If I were to unskin this, it jumps up. So that's the problem. So let's go back. Let's go back here. See if I can quickly fix this. Show me the skeleton. What I'm going to do, I'm not going to change the translation. This is where I did the bind pose originally, so moving this down creates chaos. So let's ungroup this group here and see if this works. Now I do have animation on her once again, but let's start by creating the LOD meshes. If you have any groups, it's going to tell you can't do it. It's good to debug these errors because you're going to be getting a lot of them. You're going to be finding problems you haven't found before, especially if you're using different versions of different software. As you find new versions, we're going to find new issues. It should have stayed put, so I'm not going to fiddle with this now. I'm going to select the hips, the group, give us a new save, and I'm going to say export selection, Mavis low, triangulate is on, animation is off. Give it a second. All these little things make a difference when you're skinning. Don't have the hips at a translation. or the root of the translation, but you normally do, so I don't know. Let's see. Not going to bother now with all the other stuff. I just first want to see if this thing is working or not. So let's bring her in and let's start moving around here. There's still oh, okay. Yeah, she's still popping. Okay, so she's definitely still popping. So if I were to bring in the animation, it's still going to do that. Don't bring in the mesh. Let's just take a quick look. This is a nice little problem to check out. Yep, it's broken. You can see there by the knees, it's broken. Okay, I actually don't know why, and it's not really important. The important thing was showing off the plugin, and the plugin works. Just bring in your high-res textures, or your textures from Substance, save it, select your static mesh, and just hit the plugin, and it will go and create those high-res materials for you. Saves you a hell of a lot of time, so you can focus on other things like finding bugs and issues. Cool.